Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our IG Lives for Liam 2024 Life Insurance Awareness Month. I am excited to be here with you today to share with you about a very important topic. It is critical illness and the safety net that it could be for us. So we are going to have Dwight join us in a minute. And as we do, just a reminder, as we always remind you, this is a informational session, and we are sharing information for you for your benefit. There we go. We are sharing information to share with you so that you can make educated decisions. We are not giving you any personal advice. We're sharing with you our experiences, some anecdotes that we have gone through, and just information that definitely can be useful for you. Hello, Dwight. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Valeria?
I'm great. I'm great. You know what? It's a rainy Monday. It's a busy Monday,
hmm
but I'm glad we're able to sit down for half an hour and share with families exactly what it is
Yes,
that we do.
looking forward to it.
So we are talking about critical illness tonight. For those of you who don't know what critical illness is, critical illness or critical illness coverage is a type of insurance policy. It is to cover you in case of a critical illness. It is something that we call in the industry a living benefit, meaning that you can benefit from it as you are alive, you know? And so with critical illness, there are some details that we want to share with you, how they work, but also some background, because I think that's important to share. So Dwight, share with us some of the background of critical illness coverage, where it came from, originated, and why it's so necessary.
Yes, yes, critical illness actually came. I think most people are under the impression that critical illness came from an insurance company, but in reality, it actually came from a doctor, right? I believe we were talking about his name. His name is slipping me right now.
Dr. Marius Barnard.
Yes. All right. So what he observed was that um, based on the advancement of medicine, people were living longer because the treatments they were designing and creating were keeping people alive for a longer period of time. However, it was running them bankrupt, meaning they are pulling out resources, finances from everywhere that they can, their retirement savings or savings, anywhere they can find money to essentially pay for the treatments, right, or the ability to maintain that lifestyle, while they're going through the treatment. So that challenge is what sort of sparked the idea of having part of an insurance policy that covers those essentially acts as income replacement in the event that you are sick, which is designed to replace your income, right? So the rule of thumb is either 1 year or 2 years of your income of critical illness. That way, in the event you become critically ill, and there are different conditions that you can look at, the idea is that it would pay out a lump sum amount that would allow you to have the necessary income to sustain yourself, pay for the treatments, etc., without having to worry about where's the money coming from, as well as avoid you getting into financial challenges, bankruptcy, things of that nature.
100%. And I think the biggest thing to realize is that, I mean, what are some of the major stressors in our lifetime right now? I think finance is one of the major stressors. Would you agree?
100%. Yep.
So if I don't have enough money for myself, to listen, if I have to take time off of work to recover from a critical illness, and I don't have enough money to take that time off of work, how am I able to properly recover? If my mind is going to constantly be stressed about bills are not getting paid, we're getting sent to collectors. We've got to take out personal lines of credit. We've got to take out maybe equity on our home. and we've got to refinance our home and all of this stuff for us to be able to survive. How do you recover properly? And I think in essence, that's what Dr. Marius Barnard was talking about, was that the financial strain was so much that even though they recovered from their critical illness and were on a step towards fully recovering, that they were 10 steps backwards because now they were stressing about all the financial troubles that they were in.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
this is a huge opportunity to sit down, and especially as we've said it before, if you are younger, on the younger end of the spectrum, to take advantage of the fact that you're younger and the premiums could be much less the younger you are. Right? Because it is an opportunity for you to really pay less but get more.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. We have some statistics to share because listen, we want to share with you some stats that are out there. It is not to be Debbie Downers on a rainy Monday afternoon or Monday evening, but it is to put things into perspective. Would you agree, Dwight?
Yes. And I think that perspective is what we need to share with everyone so that there's an understanding as to why it's important.
Yeah, 100%. I know that one of our providers, one of our companies, CPP, has an article online that you can find, and one of the stats that they have up there from their studies is 741,800 Canadian adults are living with the effects of a stroke. Right? So that's a huge number to be living with the effects of a stroke. And a stroke can be from very quick, where you recover enough that you can go back to work within 6 months. But a stroke can also be something that is very debilitating, and your lifestyle has to change. You have to make modifications to your home, which is also a financial cost to you and your family. So it can go on the spectrum of severity.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest areas, aside from a couple others that you have.
Yes. So this is directly from the Canadian Cancer Society. And what they're saying is 2 out of 5 people will develop some form of cancer during their lifetime. Right? So of the closest 5 people to you, 2 of them, right? They have a high probability of getting some form of cancer, right? The other stat to combat that is 62% of those people who develop or are affected by cancer will recover, right? So if you think of a populace of, let's say, 100 people, and 62 of those 100 get some form of cancer and they survive, and let's say only 10 of those had some form of critical illness in place, right?
Yeah.
So that means if we take so that means 50, there's a high chance that 52 people can go bankrupt, meaning the 10 that have it, they're able to survive financially, right? So when you really think about what this stat is saying from the Canadian Cancer Society, 18% of people that have cancer will pass, but 62% will survive. Question is, how much of those 62% of people would have it would be in a position to financially support themselves, or would they have to use their savings, retirement, etc., just to get through that hurdle?
Yeah, 100%. And that's why we called it a safety net for your finances, right? Because it is giving you a safety net. It's giving you enough to be able to reach in there, tap in there, so that you don't have to reach into your savings. You don't have to reach into your retirement fund. You don't have to reach into further debts and loans, right? Aside from that, heart disease is one that is very prevalent. So 1 in 12 Canadians are living with heart disease. It's huge, and I've spoken about this before. This is something that hits close to home because we have seen it with my father-in-law. We have seen it in our family, and it's a long step. It's a long recovery to have to, experience that with a family member. So, and sometimes it's hereditary. Sometimes these critical illnesses are not hereditary, right? And that's another thing to put into perspective. That sometimes you can say, well, nobody in my family has it, but nowadays that's really not it's not a factor that, that means anything anymore, because now just life, high elevated stress levels in our society, the food we eat, the contaminants in the environment, those things can lead to having a critical illness, right?
Yes.
So with that, we are going to get into the nitty gritty of critical illness. One of the things we want to share with you is that it is a policy and it is a contract that covers you for, in some policies, covers you for 25 critical illness conditions. So I'm going to share that with you guys. I'm going to literally read off the list. Alzheimer's. How many families do you know that have been affected by Alzheimer's? Aortic surgery, aplastic anemia, bacterial meningitis, benign brain tumor, blindness, cancer, life-threatening, coma, coronary artery bypass surgery, deafness, heart attack, heart valve replacement, kidney failure, loss of independent existence, loss of limbs, loss of speech, major organ transplant, major organ failure on waiting list, motor neuron disease, multiple sclerosis, occupational HIV infection, paralysis, Parkinson's disease, severe burns, and stroke. And in the case of children under the age of 24, under their 24th birthday, they have 5 more conditions that they are covered for with a critical illness coverage, and that is cerebral palsy, congenital heart disease, cystic fibrosis, muscular dystrophy, and type 1 diabetes mellitus. So it can be very, very expansive to have a critical illness coverage, because some of these blindness doesn't necessarily have to come from an illness. It could be injury related, right? And you could have ended up blind. So certain things that would be covered in there that we don't necessarily think of.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's important to also know that these conditions, like I mentioned before, they analyze what are the major illnesses that cause people the most problems, right? They're probably the most expensive to cure, and they're the most curable, right? And so this is a really good comprehensive list of the different types of illnesses. Now there are, I had clients inquire about other types of illnesses, right? Diabetes tends to come up quite often, right? Diabetes is one of those things that can lead to a critical illness, right? In of itself, it's not critical, but there are different types and different stages at which point it becomes critical.
It can lead to like loss of limb, can lead to blindness. So
exactly, right? There are these precursor illnesses that we want to ensure that people understand that as soon as you get sick, yes, you want to contact your advisor to find out, okay, are these illnesses covered, but also understand that the illnesses that are covered are specific to what's in that contract, right? And it's really just to set the expectation for people that so they understand, right? A case in point, I did have a conversation today with a client where they suffered a concussion from an accident, right? Now, that's really not covered because a concussion is not really considered critical, right? Now, if it leads to, some sort of brain injury, or if it leads to loss of your independent function or anything of that nature, that's when, this can step in and really pay out to help support.
So also understand that when we do talk about critical illness coverage, there is an underwriting process for these policies. And we've talked about underwriting before. And basically what it means is that the insurance company is going to do their due diligence and find out if you are insurable. And in most cases, most people are. But however, there could be cases where, and I've seen this personally, where you have an pre-existing condition. So in one of the cases that I have seen, kidney failure will not be covered. But the thing is, this upfront.
Yes.
You know this from the get-go, that kidney failure will not be covered. However, should anything else happen to you, any of the 24 other conditions happen, you are covered. So now let's talk about how the coverage works. So you pay a premium, and Dwight, walk us through paying the premium and what happens at time of claim.
Yes. So you keep up with your premium payments. At the time of claim, obviously there's some paperwork that you will submit, and that's generally, in our case, we are the ones that will submit that on behalf of our clients. What we do require from them is some formal documentation of that diagnosis, right? Without that, we don't have any a leg to stand on when it comes to submitting it, because obviously the insurance company needs to verify that in fact is the illness and it's come from a viable source, right? So once we submit that, depending on the insurance company, generally with critical illness claims, they tend to get on it extremely quickly. If there are no pending questions around the illness, sometimes they may want a little bit more information from the that may not be in the report. So there's that little back and forth that may happen within the 1 or 2, 3 days. But for the most part, the insurance companies will, once it's approved, they'll look to pay that out as soon as possible, right? In terms of how it's paid out, you can receive it via a check if you so desire, or a wire transfer, whatever is easiest for you. They can issue it that way, but it's a fairly quick process, because they understand that funds are needed right away. If it's a critical illness, that means time is not on your side, so they try to get those resources to you as soon as possible.
So one of the things we also want to share with you with regards to critical illness and putting a claim through, let's say you are diagnosed with a critical illness on September 1st, you need to wait 30 days in order to submit your claim, right?
Correct.
And the
Yes.
reason for that is because essentially you can't double dip, right?
Yes.
So because you have to, the critical illness is for surviving critical illnesses. It is not for death from a critical illness. For death, we have life insurance. So just, putting that out there as a disclosure for individuals to know, you have to have survived your critical illness for 30 days. And once that has been, it doesn't mean that we don't, put the claim through once you are diagnosed, but you need to have survived 30 days. And once the survival period is done, you do have your payment, as you said, in a lump sum. And it's not deemed for anything in particular. We talk about it as replacing your income, but it can be for anything, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just cash, right? It's money, right? And it's also tax-free, right?
Yeah.
Which means there are no tax implications. If you get $50,000 of critical illness and it's approved, it's $50,000 that you get, right? And that you can use however you want. I had a client that totally changed her diet. So instead of just, shopping at the bare minimum where food isn't the best quality, she was able to start shopping where in the organic section, getting the best products for her to recover. She was able to pay off some of her debt. She was able to ensure that her living space was conducive to her illness, so she wouldn't have to necessarily walk up and down the stairs too often. She can, kind of set up her quarters, which obviously includes a little bit of equipment, that type of stuff. So that money you can use for whatever you deem possible. Obviously, you want to be smart with it, but there's no restriction on what you can use that money for.
Yeah, and just think about it, because if say, you're, let's just say you're a two-person, two-income household, okay? And you're the one that is affected by the critical illness.
Mhm.
But let's say, the other income can support the whole family expenses. However, you've got a little baby, right? And so then that money can go towards paying for childcare.
Yes.
Because maybe you were that parent that took care of the child, so that money can go towards childcare. So it is for anything, really.
Yep.
And that is a huge thing for people to understand.
It is
to help you get through one of the most difficult times of your life
in
in the easiest way
Mhm.
possible, the smoothest way possible,
You got it.
right? Without stressing about finances
Yes.
and making decisions.
Yeah.
We have an agent in our office who was diagnosed with critical illness, and before she ever became an agent in our office, she was spoken to by a financial advisor and had been spoken about the critical illness policy, and she got a at the time, because she said at the time she was like 20 years old or something, she was like,
Mhm.
yeah, sure, sign me up for this, and got herself a sizable policy. She was able to take care of herself during her cancer diagnosis, do things that, cost a lot of money out of pocket, but, treatments that helped her recover, helped her be a cancer survivor now all these years later, right?
Mhm.
So it is up to you what you use it for. The other thing I think that we want to touch on is that there are different ways that we can set up a critical illness policy. One of the ways is as a rider. So what would a rider look like?
Yeah, Ryder's like it's an add-on, right? It's the fries and the drink with your combo. Okay. So it's essentially an addition to your main coverage, which allows you to have the benefits of both sides of the coin, right? Obviously, we think of life insurance as you're dead, you're no longer here, and the money goes to your beneficiary, right? But critical illness says, hey, you're still alive, but doc says you can't go to work. Now you've got to be concerned about where's your income coming from, right?
Mhm.
So you can add the critical illness as a rider so that it essentially helps balance the coverage that you have for both living versus when you've passed on.
So one of the reasons we would add a rider to a policy would be because in and of itself, it's not a separate policy. Like Dwight said, it is in combination with a life insurance policy. And so you don't have to pay an extra policy fee to have that in place, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
However, there are perks, right? There are perks. So quick question to poll anybody that is out there. What would you say if you were the best driver in Toronto, and you drove from the age of 16 till, let's say, you said you hung up your shoes at 85, and you drove for that many amount of years. You know that you have to have insurance to be driving, right? And you never got into an accident, you never had a claim, you never put any claims through. Wouldn't it be great if at the end of your term, you were able to say, I never had a claim, can I get some money back?
Mhm.
A return of premium. Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be awesome.
However, it doesn't happen with auto insurance, okay? Don't ask us why, that's not our realm. But we can have that happen with a critical illness policy, right?
Yes. 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 It's called a return of premium. It is an additional benefit that you can opt in for with your critical illness. Some providers offer a range of different return of premiums. There's return of premium upon death, right? This means that your beneficiaries would get all the premiums you paid into the critical illness. There's return of premium at age 65, depending on your age, if that is, a viable option. There's also return of premium after 15 years, right? So depending on when you get the policy, if you're around in year 16 and you're like, hold on, I can actually exercise some of all the premiums that are put into the critical illness, you have the option to do that, right? These are additional benefits, and I think it's important that people understand that there is a cost to having those additional benefits. That said, when you look at the ratio of what you're investing versus what you're getting back, it simply outweighs the costs that you would pay to have that additional benefit. You're getting all the premiums back anyways. So if you can financially support that, and that's an option you'd like to get, I would generally always recommend that.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it as a forced savings, right?
Yes.
And also, almost like a little game for myself, right? Because I want to beat the system. I want to be that one statistic that says I didn't get anything, I didn't put a claim through, therefore, can I get my money back? All right.
Yeah.
That being said, let's talk before we end off tonight a little bit about the mentality that we've seen with different clients. And some clients are very receptive. We talk about critical illness. They see it. They see the value in what it is that we're talking about. However, there are some individuals that we speak to that don't quite catch the value just yet. Because, listen, critical illness is not a cheap policy. Depending on how much you want to have coverage. It is not something that is like, as we talked about, you can have term where it's a very inexpensive policy. It's not.
Right.
It is, it can be an investment in yourself. Right. However, some people will look at that and say, well, why would I put that much down for this policy? I would rather take and these are just numbers, guys. This is not, you have to know specifically your age, your health conditions, what are you getting covered for, all those factors to know, and how much you're asking for coverage. But let's just say $200. Why would I put $200 a month on this policy? I'd rather put these $200 a month into my investments, into my TFSA or something, right? So take us through that mentality, Dwight.
Yeah,
what's your? I have mine. My go-to answer for that. What's yours?
Yes, yeah, and it's a very valid question and point and mindset that people generally have, right? And again, so nothing is wrong with either putting money into your critical illness policy or putting it into investment. To me, it's not really a question of one or the other. I would say do both if you can, but if you were to prioritize one of them, right? With a critical illness policy, you're essentially putting in a small amount of money for a lot, right? So let's say you have $100,000 critical illness policy, and let's say you're paying $50 a month. That $50 that you're paying in gives you access to 100 grand at any point during the contract. Now, if you put that same $50 into a savings account, let's say you have an illness in the next year, you'd only have, I don't know, what's 50 times 12 for that year, right? You'd have $600 to use, right? So what would you prefer? The 600
enough to pay for parking.
Yeah.
At the hospital.
Right? Yeah. So that's the difference.
100%. That's the perspective that that I like to share with families as well, is that it doesn't have to be one or the other. We can always sit down, and again, reminding you how we do things. We sit down with families, we do a full financial needs analysis. I know for a fact, speaking for myself and speaking for Dwight, we won't ask you to go into something that you cannot afford, that you cannot maintain, because what's the point of that, right? Having something that you can maintain is key. But the thing that we talk about is that, well, if I'm putting $50 to a TFSA, and that is supposed to be, the mentality is that's supposed to be for a critical illness that may happen, we don't know when it's going to happen, right? Yes. It could happen 6 months from now. It could happen 10 years from now. It could never happen. We don't know.
Mhm.
And also having the money there in a account that is a lot easier accessible to us, more easily accessible.
Mhm.
It also allows us to have that opportunity to maybe dip into that account just a little bit, right? Because an emergency happens and we need to take some money out for the car tires or,
Right.
you know, the dancing shoes or like, you know,
Yeah.
things that come up. So
Mhm.
it's more accessible, which means the chances are that when you do actually need the money, it might not be there, right?
Right.
And so this
Yes.
is why we share having this policy in place so that when you need it, it's there. And
It's
if you
there.
have return of premium, you can have your premiums come back to you at the end of the
Yes.
cycle, right?
Mhm.
Any final comments that you want to add in there, Dwight?
No, the only other thing I would say is this, I would say see this as an important part of your protection plan. Despite your age, right? It's also extremely good for children. In fact, I recommend lock it in as soon as possible. 15 days old, you can get insurance on children. I think critical illness is probably the most important in those early years because again, you never know complications, something hereditary, something maybe developing. Lock in their insurability early. But all the way up to this, doesn't matter what age you're at. I'll also mention this: I have insured some cancer survivors, right? So if there are scenarios where people have a historic pre-existing condition, but they are cured of it, there are timeframes in which the insurance companies might say, "Hey, we can reconsider you." So all hope is not lost, and we do have
Mhm.
providers that provide critical illness. It may not be the vast 25 conditions. It just may be cancer, it just may be heart attack, but at least it's something,
Yeah.
right? So don't feel that you are out of luck. A simple conversation with someone like yourself, myself, or me would be able to figure that out with you.
100%. 100%. Ladies and gents, we are done for today. We promise short and sweet so that you get
Yep,
the info that you need. No fluff. We do keep it a little fun though, right?
we do.
I think we
We
keep
do.
it a little fun. um,
We do.
but let us talk about our next one. Next one is our last one for the month, for the month of Liam Life Insurance Awareness Month. And we're actually going to pat ourselves on the back a little bit on the next one, because our next topic is going to be basically why work with someone like us? Why
Mhm,
would you want to work with an advisor? What
mhm.
advantages are there to sitting down and going through it? And we're going to go through the mentality of, instant gratification, how that works nowadays and how we work. And we'll take you through the process and share with you, the benefits and how that could be, we can be of use to you,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So I hope you join us for that. Dwight, always a pleasure.
Likewise. Likewise, Valeria.
Always fun. So let's get ourselves on our live this coming Thursday, 7 p.m. And you guys, if you need anything else, if you have any questions from critical illness to life insurance to anything under the scope of what we can share with you, please reach out to us. We would be happy to help.
Yes. Sounds good.
All right. Take care, everyone.